So welcome to Halen House's educational series. Today is Healing Trauma Through Art and Creativity. I'm Cheryl Mills, president of Halen House, and our mission is to heal the root cause and effects of trauma, creating health, resilience, and wholeness. And part of our way of doing that is to educate people about what trauma is, how it affects them, and what they can do to heal. We know that there are many complementary and alternative types of therapies and modalities that can help people so that it expands their options beyond therapy and Western medical treatments. So these can be used in conjunction with or alone. So we like to introduce people to different types of modalities that might be healing for them. And with today's art and creativity, let me just get to that intro here. Okay, so today we're talking about art and creativity and healing. So what does having a creative practice do for a person's heart and soul? How does bringing out your intuition through experiential creativity and artistic practice give someone a way to empowerment? Art can bring a release to traumatic events through expressing oneself. A resilience can take hold when you express yourself artistically, that can be transformational, and routines for a more balanced life can be established. Learn how awakening the inner child and inner artist can help to process emotions, fears, anxieties, and other stuck feelings that may have been trapped in your body for a short time or a lifetime. Learn the power of transformation in creating art and expressing yourself for just, well, let me back up. Learn the power of transformation in creating art and expressing oneself for just ourselves, or when we are brave enough to share with the world our creative endeavors. Learn how even simple practices can morph into routines that can have lifelong love of expression towards your heart and soul. Hear from two artists' perspectives on how using the artist expression of creating works of art continues to be a joy and learning experience for each. Whether you have always used art to express yourself, are a recent developing artist, or someone that would like to try but feels scared to try, be part of this important conversation in how art and creativity can create healing and holistic openings for everyone to express. Our presenters today are Leslie Nelson, lifelong hobby artist and student of the arts. As a child, I used art to express myself in a safe way when the rest of the world felt unsafe. Art has been my refuge throughout the years and has been a tool to get me through some of the hardest times that life will inevitably throw at us. Sharing my creative expression with the world has also helped me gain confidence and heal from trauma. I believe that creativity is a gift we are all born with, and it can bless not only our own lives, but also the lives of others. And Maria Cookson, a Halen House team member, developing artist and facilitator to help others see the positive changes that can be made in one's life through intuitive creativity in the arts. 7 years ago, I made the leap to try an intuitive painting art class in town, and it changed my life in so many ways. Taking the month-long class and meeting other artists led me to a pathway of healing and empowerment that I could not imagine to this day. Art and creativity are my heart and soul's work, and it is available to everyone who feels a call. Welcome, Leslie and Maria.
Thank you, Cheryl. And thank you. And thank you, Leslie, for coming too. And I will start today. Yes, art and creativity has been a huge opening for me, both in realizing who I am, and also in the healing process in some things that have gone on in my life, but also just to keep going deeper into this journey that is our life, and ways to express ourselves. Um, it I was always using, I scribbled and colored and as a kid, and like we all, usually do, put pen to paper and things like that. And at some point in my life, it was just not not allowed, or at least I didn't think it was allowed. And so I like schooling, and I wasn't one of those that somebody said, casually, oh, you can't do this or whatever, but it just, because that does happen for many people and kids, you'll be a teacher or a parent or somebody. It's not meant to hurt us, but it roadblocks us, and we stop being that child and using art as a way to express ourselves for many. As far as I know, I didn't have one event, but I just, at some point, it was like, I can't do that, or that's not, I need to work on schooling and job and all that other stuff of, what life is supposed to be. And so I did kind of just let art go, and just kind of, that was a hole in my heart that I didn't understand for a long time. And so I just was moving through life and trying to do the best I can, and but there was something missing. And I was about 7 years ago, there was something, I think, in my soul that just was craving that I get back into the art. And I use that as a way to express myself. And I didn't even know that was what I was needing at the time. And I saw a flyer for intuitive painting class, and I didn't even know what that was. I had never heard of it before. I had studied art just as an appreciation in high school and college, and just thought I just not meant to do it, but just appreciate it. And so I took the flyer and was brave enough to say, okay, I'm going to try this. And it wasn't easy, but it did open up my whole world to expression again, and knowing that art and creativity is something that is innately human in us, and we need it. Society and a lot of other people feel like, oh, that's just something you do as a kid, or if you've got a special talent, you can pursue it. But we are all creative individuals. We can all use that expression in many, many different ways. And that's part of what I want to let people know, that it is available, and it can be some, even through seems like simple things, practices, you can really help yourself process feelings, things that may have happened in your past or maybe in the present, And it's just part of, it really is part of who we are. And it can be a lot of fun, and you can spend hours at it, or you can spend a few minutes at it. And so that is part of my story for today. And then it's led to some really deep healing for myself. And so I will pass. That's just part of my story. So I will pass it to Leslie, and so we can hear a little bit about her story, and then we'll get into maybe some questions. So.
Great, thanks for sharing, Maria. My name's Leslie, and it's really been in my adult life where I've realized how impactful art has been throughout my life. As a kid, art was just something I did. I didn't think about it. It was just kind of integral to who I was. And I was lucky enough to grow up and go to a school that very much valued the arts, not only visual arts, but also things like drama and expressive dance and lots of different artistic expressions. And so it was wonderful to have a community that valued that and fostered that in children, but also the adults associated with those children. And I grew up in a home that was safe in a lot of ways, but it was not a place where it was really safe to express emotions or feelings. Most of the time it was met with being told to, just suck it up or deal with it. And as an adult, I realized that art was my way of expressing those emotions and getting them out of my body. As a child, I had this whole kind of comic book series that I had made. The main character, his name was Kirby, and his best friend Jessica, and they would go on all these adventures. And I even made like little paper dolls, and I made outfits for them so I could dress them up in different outfits, and they would go on these adventures. And as an adult, looking back on that, I feel like that was how I kind of worked out what was going on in my life as a child, without really knowing how to express those feelings, especially in a place where that wasn't really safe. So art and writing was huge for me as a child. And then it just kind of continued into my adult life. It was never anything that I considered, doing full time or anything like that. I'd always heard if you really love something, don't make it your source of income because it can ruin it. So it's always just been a hobby of mine. Well, I guess actually until recently, I recently started making jewelry, and I started doing that this year, just recently, when we were caring for my father-in-law as he was transitioning out of this life and into the next, through his battle with cancer. And that was an extremely difficult time, very emotional. And I found that I needed something to keep my hands busy. I needed to be creating something when, it felt like kind of everything was falling apart around me, and I needed to express that creative energy somehow. As humans, we have both creative and destructive energy. And when those things get off balance, our whole life can get off balance. So art is kind of my way of coping with destructive times in my life, and kind of like the yin and yang, like balancing that out. So I fell in love with jewelry making, and I just got some jewelry in a couple stores, and I have some friends who have really taken on to following what I'm doing and been really supportive. And also with my painting, I have friends who have seen what I've done, and they've commissioned me to do artwork. And for me, that was extremely validating. I've experienced different kinds of trauma throughout my life, but a lot of that trauma kind of beat me down to make me feel like I wasn't worthy, I wasn't valuable, I didn't have anything to contribute, and it really affected my self-esteem. And so to be doing art and seeing other people, appreciate this thing that I'm creating, that's coming from my heart, was extremely validating and for me, and has really helped me gain self-confidence and kind of recover from some of that trauma that I've experienced throughout my life. So that's been absolutely huge for me in my recovery. If I get cranky and I'm cranky for more than a few days, I'm like, okay, it's either one of two things. I need to get outside and spend some time in nature, or I need to do art and create something. And as soon as I do one of those two things for however long I'm doing it, I'll come out like a whole new person. It really is just so healing and such an incredible tool that we all have access to. So I've been extremely thankful for artistic expression in a lot of ways throughout my life.
That's awesome. Thank you, Leslie and Maria.
Yes.
I have a question for both of you.
Mhm.
So if someone like myself says, I am not artistic, I can't, I can't even draw like stick figure people. But I feel like this is something that I would like to do, but I just feel like I can't do it. What would you recommend that somebody do to get started?
Do you want to go? Do you want to go, Leslie, first?
Oh, sure. I guess it's funny because that's exactly what my husband says, that I can only draw stick figures. Like I could never do that. And one of these days I'm going to get him to paint with me. I'm still working on it. But even though he says, oh, I can only draw stick figures, he's done some super meaningful things for me. Like drawing me little cards that have stick figures acting out different things. and I just adore them. And I think that art is so subjective. I mean, you can go to a museum of modern art and there's literally a white canvas with a red line on it and it's millions of dollars. So I would say, like, don't judge yourself. Try and let go of that little voice in your head that we all have, that is trying to tell us we're not good enough. Because that voice is a liar, always a liar.
Yeah.
And just start out with like little baby steps. Like maybe even just if you're on the phone or watching a movie, just have a pad and like doodle a little bit, and don't have any expectations for yourself. And sometimes I find when I have expectations for myself, that's when everything goes wrong with my artwork. And when I enter into it, like, I just want to have fun and play and do this, it turns out being awesome. So little baby steps, you don't have to start out and think you're going to be Picasso or Rembrandt with your first piece of art. And don't judge yourself, because we all have that little devil that sits on our shoulder that tells us these negative things. And that's not true. You can absolutely do art.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's where I think our perception and everything we've been taught, I mean, and visually, we're so product oriented too. So I think I mean, and I was there, both in feeling the perfectionism of like, oh, I gotta, make this flower and make it look, gorgeous, like it, like we see in nature every day. But it, you start somewhere, and for, you know, maybe you do want to be able to do a face or do something very realistic, but just know that it's a process. I've listened to many summits of different artists and everything and creatives, and there's many people that say, you know, we're not allowed, and I'm paraphrasing, but like art seems like we need to just know how to do it. You know, we're taught math, we're taught, you know, writing, we're taught, I mean, even writing, people still think that, oh, you know, I've got this novel or whatever. But especially the arts, you know, we don't give ourselves grace to make it a process, and to know, you know, to take those baby steps like Leslie is talking about, to know that it's okay. And one of the things that I've learned in my process is, excuse me, is about layering. So just putting, you know, getting just putting something down, you know, making a scribble line, just kind of being out of your head. You can just like close your eyes and use your non-dominant hand and just scribble for a minute. And then you can, you know, more times than not, you may see something. You may see a bird or something, and then you can start kind of working that in. Or sometimes it's just putting color down and seeing how it reacts. I think we also forget about play, and just being able to have fun, you know, and maybe it'll be a pretty picture in that session you have today, or maybe it won't. Maybe it'll take you a few months, but just try and let that creative, expressive practice come out, because you more than likely you will surprise yourself. So everyone can do it.
Everyone can do it. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
everyone can do it.
So what if I'm convinced that I can't draw or paint, but if I'm really creative, like Leslie said, you know, she makes jewelry. What other ways, what other forms does creativity take?
Yeah, there's so many forms of creativity. I don't do it very often, but working with clay and pottery is extremely powerful. Especially the clay. I think part of that is that, you know, this clay is coming from the earth and you're making something out of it with your hands, and you're molding it. And that is a wonderful way to do art. Expressive dance, even just like listening to a song and just, you know, maybe closing your blinds so your neighbors can't see you, and just dancing around and like feeling that in your soul. You don't have to have any, you know, paint or pencils or anything to do that. That is free. So yeah, the jewelry making has been awesome for me to work with my hands. I think working with my hands for me is really what does it. But you don't have to, like, there's other ways to do that. Things like origami, you know, folding origami can be very therapeutic. There's the basket weaving, underwater basket weaving. There, you know, it's like
That college class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the options are really limitless. And I saw a quote on Instagram just the other day, and I can't remember exactly what it was. It was a long quote, but she was basically saying that everything in life is art. You know, the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you set a table, the way you eat your food, it's really all art because it's different for each of us and it's our own interpretation. And I mean, everything is art. So, you know, don't let that feel limiting to think, oh, I have to paint or I have to sketch. There's lots of other things you can do.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, yeah, there's just, I mean, you can go out in nature and, you know, arrange some sticks or, you know, the rocks. I mean, that's the next way to express. People will, you know, they'll stack up the rocks and, you know, make on the trail, or now like too, people are getting into, you know, painting a rock and leaving it somewhere, you know, so someone can find, you know, that little just expression, you know, and you can turn around and that can make somebody's day, you know, and they can be, you know, you don't know if a child did that or, you know, uh, whatever age adult did that, you know, and you're right, Leslie, that's the great thing too, is if there's something that appeals to you, in some way, expression, you know, movement, you know, even getting out there and like being out in nature and yelling, you know, that can be, you know, that can be a way to get your emotions out, and an expression that maybe is totally just for you, you know, or you can, you know, try something, you know, try writing or try, you know, painting or sketching, or, I mean, there's just, that's the other thing with art and all there's so many different things. I've thought for a long time, you know, oh yeah, it's painting or, you know, just one or two things when it's not, and you can do it at any level, and it doesn't mean, for a long time I had like a blockage of like even the term like crafts and crafty, and I thought kind of negative to it, and that was really more limitations that I put, that other people told me that maybe that was, so, you know, if you want to knit, if that helps, you know, process things, and you're, you know, you're making a sweater or your clothes, or, you know, there is just a multitude of options to do. And I think it's part of the, like doing something with your hands or your body, some kind of expression and getting it out. So,
okay.
yeah. So if there's something that's been, you know, that you've looked and said, oh, you know, I would love to do that, you know, then maybe just give it a try.
Yeah,
And
pay attention to that little nudge that says,
Mhm,
oh, that sounds interesting to me. You know,
mhm.
maybe that's, you know, your intuition speaking to you to say, we'll try it.
Yeah.
So if I was somebody who's a workaholic, I said, I don't have time for that. Do you two set time aside to do this, like for your mental health? And what would you advise somebody who says, I don't have time for that?
Yeah. And I was there. I was there a few years ago. And so I would say if it is a nudge or an interest, and you have, you may not seem like you have some time, but you do. You know, you can do just take a minute, even 30 seconds. I've had some practices where some online classes that were just putting a couple lines down, like doing like 15 seconds, like 30 seconds. And you work up to like a minute. And it's interesting to see what, you know, what comes out of even like 15 seconds, 30 seconds that you can put down. You know, I've said, like, a friend of mine had a blockage where she like just couldn't do it. You know, you know, I have 20 things going on and I can't. And I said, just put a piece of paper on your countertop and just, you know, put some lines down, you know, or make a leaf, make something simple, you know, and just keep doing it, you know, and you can, and it'll build up. And then maybe you want, oh, maybe I'm spending 5 minutes, or maybe I'm spending a whole half hour. And then it starts building. And so it can be hard. And I was like saying, oh, I can't do a morning practice, because that's, a lot of people will say, you know, you get up in the morning and, you know, you can write or paint or do some expression. And excuse me. And I roadblocked myself for a long time. And then I just kind of started doing that, just giving myself 5 minutes. And then it kept building, like I didn't want to stop. Or I did it like before I went to bed. I did just a quick few minutes doodle. And it was really relaxing and helped me go to sleep. So yeah. So what about you, Leslie?
Yeah, I definitely kind of have to set aside time in my head where I know I'm going to dedicate it to art. Another thing that really helps me is, like, some people have a workout buddy, having like an art buddy that kind of holds you accountable, or that you plan to, okay, we'll go over to each other's houses and we'll just paint for, you know, an hour or 2 hours or however long. It's definitely hard for a lot of people in our modern society to find time to take for ourselves, you know, when you have jobs and kids and spouses and obligations and cooking and cleaning the house and all these things. But what I've really learned is that self-care is more important than anything, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't do any of those other things well. And so for me, art is a way of caring for myself and giving that time to myself to kind of decompress and get the rest of life kind of in line. So I've learned that is very important. And so I've learned to prioritize it, but it's not easy. It's,
Yeah.
you know, it's much easier to look at that stack of laundry or think, oh, I should cook a nice dinner that's healthy, and that takes a few hours, and, you know, all these things that we have to do. But it doesn't even have to be, you know, this big monumental thing. Like Maria said, it can just be like a few minutes in the morning, or it can just be like one day a week for an hour. Or it can be every single day if you want, but just incorporating that one way or another into your day. You know, I know that when I get bored, sometimes I'll spend time scrolling through Instagram, and all of a sudden it'll be half an hour that I've just been sitting there scrolling through Instagram. And it's like, well, I could have used that time to create something or to do art, which is much healthier, in my opinion, than scrolling through social media. So yeah, and again, it's like just not pressuring yourself to feel like I have to do this, because that takes the fun out of it, and then it becomes a chore. So just finding those little moments and kind of being conscious of, well, how much time did I waste scrolling through Instagram? Like maybe next time, instead of reaching for my phone to look at social media, I'm going to reach for a sketchbook or something like that.
Mhm.
Good advice from both of
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
And the I have to say too, the power of being with somebody else or a group can be that can be really helpful when you're getting started in this process. I have because I do multimedia and mixed media, and there's an art journaling group that I go to once a month, and it can be really powerful. So it's just can be, it's a set of time aside, so about 4 hours for once a month, and like being in a space with others, and you can be doing your own thing and cutting and pasting and or painting or drawing, or I mean it's a multitude of things, but that can be really helpful too, just in a shared time, and it can be quite inspirational, and we as a group can share if we want, but you can see that others are processing things, and you don't even know sometimes like what you're going to create, and but just being in the same space can be really helpful and healing too. So that is something that, yeah, to get you started can be helpful. So you can just say, okay, I'm dedicating this self-care time, or and whether you have it, you're just sitting there, no one's really saying anything, and they're being in their own little world and then creating something, or sometimes just even visiting and stuff. That can be a really good way to do it to kind of get you started. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you. Anything else that you'd like to share for people about healing with art and creativity?
Well, one thing for me, it's difficult for me to cry. And, sometimes it's just like, oh, I just want to cry. I just want to get these emotions off of me. And I had one of my spiritual advisors say that all that crying is just stored up energy leaving your body. And I realized that is what art is for me. It's hard for me to cry even when I give myself permission. It just, something stops me, and so I turn to art, because art is a way of that kind of stored up negative energy leaving my body. And afterwards, it's just like I feel like a ton of bricks has been lifted off of my shoulders. And I think it was good old Einstein that figured out, energy is never created or destroyed. It just changes forms. And so that negative energy, when it stores up in our bodies, like it has to manifest somehow. And, worst case scenario, it can manifest in health problems or mental health problems or things like that. Best case scenario, it comes out in a creative way. and for me, that's painting and making jewelry. And sometimes emotions, like when we feel them, I can almost see them in my head. Like I see they're a certain color, or they look like this, or they're spinning, or whatever it may be. And it's not necessarily something that I can talk about. Like I don't know how to put that into words, but it is something that can maybe be put in a form of art. And just kind of like letting go of that. And once it's out, that energy has left your body and it's turned into another form that's a much healthier form. So that for me has been extremely therapeutic about art. And so I know there's a lot of people that have a difficult time expressing emotions, like through crying, or just like Maria said, like going out in the forest and yelling. Like how good does that feel afterwards? But if that's something that you struggle with, maybe try art. Because for me, that was really what worked for me.
That's a really good point. There are a lot of people who can't express themselves either verbally or, through showing emotion like crying. I don't have that problem. But to think about, being able to just put it down on paper or canvas, or, some other way to just release it. It's really a good option for people who maybe have not considered that there's another way to deal with emotions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree, and that's one of the things that's been quite life-changing for me, because emotions were not supposed to be seen, kind of the old adage of seen, not be heard kind of thing, or you keep it stuffed in. And a lot of my emotions, I didn't even understand they were emotions at times for things. So they, I was, stuffed a lot of things down in my body. And so that was with some of the deeper healing and going through some of the grief work that I did and all that. I didn't realize there were things that were still stuck in my body, or there were emotions to things that that it was okay. It is totally okay. We're supposed to let these things out. But for some reason, many people have told a lot of us, no, it's not, and whether that was because it wasn't a safe space, or just, oh, you're not supposed to do that. And so like when you're a kid, and then even as an adult, there's a lot of times where maybe that, it wasn't acceptable. And when that is totally a human thing for us to be doing. But and then you get in the blame and the victim and all that stuff, but we need to let them out. We need to acknowledge, is what I've learned through my healing and through expressing, and to let others know that it is okay. That is what we are. Where we are emotions, and it's perfectly okay, even though the brain and others a lot of times thinks that it's not. And so like through when I started processing some of these things, using art and expressing, and whether it was a positive excuse me, whether it was a positive emotion or something that was not, anger or frustration, letting it out through some experiential doing, like through my hands, or it was very powerful and healing and transformational. And that's the thing, is you get to, when you do express it, you're in charge. And you can decide what you want. And so putting that down, I mean, sometimes going through some things, just throwing, getting a pen and just scribbling. And you don't even have to be writing anything, words. You can just, or just throwing paint down. Sometimes that action is just it's just getting it out. And it can be very transformational. And then when you get it out, then it doesn't always mean anything anymore. I mean, it usually doesn't. You can get it out. Then you don't have to have that baggage with it, or help process it. And so that's, for me, has been one of the biggest things about art and creativity and expressing, is that I don't have to stay with that emotion. I don't, so it can be very, very healing, and just letting it go. So.
Yeah, great. I just had a vision while you were talking about, like a pot on a stove or something that has a lid on it, just taking that lid off and relieving the pressure. When an emotion or something is stuck, and it needs to come out. So yeah.
And I think, especially when you're a kid, but even as an adult, there's so many things that we just kind of keep stuck and say, oh, that's not bothering me, or just blow it off. And it, more than likely is really bothering you, or or maybe it's really happy. But for whatever reason, it's hard to express it. It's hard to, it's hard to say, I'm being really happy. Maybe other people around me, it's a sad thing or something. So it's even the positive emotions at times we can't, for many people, it's hard to acknowledge that. Which,
yeah, you censor yourself.
Yeah.
Because of, other people. And I think that's a learned behavior too, is not allowing yourself to feel whatever it is that you feel because of other people, or that old conditioning that is still there. Yeah.
So that's, for me, it's been one of a huge growth, and saying that it's okay all the way around, that I can, I acknowledge those emotions. So art and creativity has done a lot of things, and I keep having little aha moments. So it's a part of who I am, and it's part of who we all are. And I hope others can try that, because it can be so transformational and helpful, especially when we have a lot of things that we don't always understand in these current times, or how, whatever. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Maria.
Mm-hmm.
Only got a few minutes left. Any last thoughts?
Not really. I guess just support local artists if you can. We live in a place in Central Oregon here where we have so many artists and so many just incredible creative people, and supporting those people is very important, and it's also inspiring too. I know for me, sometimes I resist what I know is good for me. So I'll be like, well, I really need to sit down and paint. Like, I know I do. And for some reason, it's like when you first start working out, it's hard to get motivated. But just going downtown and going to an art gallery or looking at other artists' work and how they express themselves is very inspiring. And so I think it's important to support those people and to give back to the community in that way. And we have a lot of awesome opportunities to do that here in Central Oregon. So yeah, and it's, art is something bigger than ourselves. And that's a really neat feeling. Because when we exercise, we're working our body. When we meditate, we're working our mind. But when we do art, it's like a body and mind connection, because your body is creating this thing that your mind is seeing. And it's really neat to bring those two things together. And it's very restorative and very healing.
Yeah, I would agree. And yeah, and just if you feel called, reach out to the artists, local, international, all everywhere. I mean, and that's another thing. I mean, to use the internet and everything can be very inspiring. There's lots of freebie things now, besides online classes that you can take that aren't expensive, but there's many things that can, give you inspiration. And if you don't have that option, nature is the best thing of inspiration. And you can, and right now with fall, you can, pick up some leaves or see their beautiful colors and try to express it that way, but there's many different options. And I think if you're feeling any kind of creative call, it can be, there are others out there. So, reach out and try and just have fun. It's also about play and fun and just having some time to yourself. So besides working on the healing and working on the heart, it can be a lot of fun.
Fun is important, and we forget to do that a lot.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Well, thank you both very much. We're just about at the top of the hour, so great session. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie.